Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on another episode of The Adventures of the Alpha Reds. I'm Ruben.
And Veronica.
And we are your Alpha Reds. On this next segment, it's brought to you by Red Alpha DTG, which is our in-house direct-to-garment department. And with direct-to-garment, if you're not familiar with that process, we use an Epson F2100 printer. And this is a method of printing that you print directly onto the garment. Something similar to this shirt, the shirts that we're wearing. All of our stuff is printed. The majority of our stuff, garments, is printed through direct to garment. With this printer, we also do direct to film or DTF films, and we sell those to other customers that don't have in-house printing. But then we also do it for ourselves because sometimes it just makes better sense to do it with through DTF than to go directly onto direct to garment, depending on the size of the business. But anyways, that's Red Alpha DTG is the sponsor for this segment. And on this next segment, we're going to talk about our pre-install process. So I'm a big fan of planning ahead. I'm not saying that I always plan ahead. Right?
He's a big fan.
I'm a big fan of it, right? And so I used to tell my kids all the time, prior planning prevents pretty poor performances, right? 6 P's. And it just helps to plan ahead, right?
Yes.
Even when it comes to installing, just being prepared, showing up prepared, and just kind of acting like you've done it before, it's it really helps. But with the pre-install process, one of the first things that we had to do is, we had to receive the graphics that are being delivered to us, right? And so there's the scheduling of the graphics, there, the address and times, our business hours, and so we have to make sure that we schedule that ahead of the install, right? Because we don't want to receive graphics that we haven't had time to look at and on the install day, right?
Right.
And what are some things from this particular one that you took away that we that are just necessary when it comes to receiving graphics?
So the first thing is that the companies that ship out graphics, they ship them out different. You would expect, because we've had a company ship us graphics, and sometimes they're rolled, sometimes they're flat and folded, But with this one, the graphics that went on the sides of the vehicles, they were long. I don't know how long they were, but they were long. Well, they were rolled up in a core, like really tight. And that's one thing that I noticed. I'm like, these are rolled up really tight. And so as I was loosening them up and laying them out, they were all curved. They were curled like a curly fry almost. And so I was like, there was no way that we could have started the same day that we got the graphics. And that's one thing that I had in mind, is like, as soon as we get the graphics, we can get started. I was thinking we'll be there that afternoon. If we get the graphics early, that wouldn't have been possible at all.
No. And it's good that it worked out the way that it did, right? Because so we got the graphics, and you want to make sure that they're all there, right? And so if you have a certain amount of vehicles that you need to install for that day, or if they're sending them all to you and you're just knocking them out one right after the other, you want to make sure that all the sides are there, and you want to make sure that there's no defects in the graphics.
Yes, no damages.
No damages. If there is, you have to make sure that you communicate with the customer and have them overnight, which was the case on this one.
It was a case on this one. A few of the items were damaged during delivery or packaging, and I let the customer know, the client know, the company, that we had a few items that were damaged. I sent her pictures, and she was able to overnight some replacements, so that we could make sure that we had the vinyl that we needed.
Right, and so whenever we get the graphics, along with the graphics, the customers will send us an install installation guide. I call it an install map, but it's the same thing, right? And so it's
Right.
like it's you know it's got the vehicle on there. It's got the placement, you know, of the graphics. It's got measurements, so you can see where, you know, visually see where it needs to go through, but also the approximate measurements where the graphics are going to go on. And the reason why I say approximate is because, you know, sometimes you're working with a design firm that is never installed, right? And so they're designing on a flat canvas.
Yes.
And they're not taking into consideration the contours and all of the different, mainly contours of the vehicle. And sometimes what they do is they take the same side, right, and they just mirror it. And then it doesn't always work that way, right? And so as the installer, you have to make it work, you know, however, because if it doesn't go right, it looks like you're the one that messed it up. But you know, that's where the communication goes. It's like, you know, hey, you know, we want you to understand that this right here, it's not going to fall exactly like it's showing on there. We're going to have to make our best judgment when it comes to installing. And then, you know, we look at it, and when we receive the graphics, we're expecting everybody to do it like what we do, right? Like whenever we're working on a project, we'll print you know, in sections to make it easier to install. And so what I try to tell my wife is that, you know, since we're a two-man crew, you know, but we're trying to create the culture so that we can grow, it's like when you're doing this process, you have to think about the other guy that's in the next process, right? And so, you know, in this case, we are the other guy, but whenever we're designing, we have to think about the production crew, right? And then the production crew and the design crew, you need to be thinking about the install team, right? Because the install team, you know, they may be really good, but they can't do miracles, right? They can't turn, you know, wine from water, you know, and so, you know, we are really good at installing, but there are limitations to everything, right? And so, as you work, you know, through the whole process of vehicle wrapping, you understand that, you know, there are some things that it just makes more sense to design it this way. And in this particular one, we couldn't remove anything to make it easier for the install. So, you know, that's one thing. After we did the inspection of the graphics, we had to go and we had to survey the install site and actually look at the vehicles that we were going to put the graphics on. What are some things that you know, right off the bat? What are some things that you noticed, you know, from the site survey that you know, that kind of stuck out?
The first thing I noticed that they were all in a row right next to each other in parking spaces.
Right.
And so we wouldn't have enough space in between them to actually complete the install. So we had comfortably. So we ended up, you know, having to find a way to do them and not be in everybody else's way too, because this is also a business. Trying to do their own business, but they were there trying to do our business, and so we had to figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, and so, you know, you kind of meet up with the I guess the manager of the location of the install,
the point of contact.
The point of contact, right? And so you know, find out what time they're leaving for the day and how much freedom you have to come and go. You know, because you'd be surprised on some of the things that you know, you take for granted, you know, running your own business, that it's not just as easy. Like, for example, you know, water, food, restroom, right? It's like, you know, you don't want to be going, you know, interrupting other people in their business, right? And so we're, as the install crew, you know, we try to be branded with our, you know, you know, logos and everything, but, you know, we're not dressed like some of these, you know, some of them are, it's a professional environment, right? And so, you know, we're over here all dusty from getting down and, you
being
know,
on the ground,
being on the ground and, you know,
just sitting down on the ground and trying to do our best.
And so, and, you know, they have customers that are purchasing, their product, right? And so we have to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
Also, the hours of operation. We don't want to keep people later than what they have to, or be a burden or inconvenience to that person. So it's like we have the customer that we're doing the install for, but then they have a customer who has a customer.
Yeah.
This was pretty.
Yeah.
There was the customer, right? And then there was the company doing the design and the graphics, and then there was the customer that was providing the vehicles, right?
Right.
And then there was us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we were the last ones, but everybody was our customer. We had to make sure that we work with the point of contact, make sure that the hours were good, and the weather was kind of working against us. It wasn't bad, but it was windy. It was cold in the mornings, and it heated up, during the afternoons, and so we can't really install graphics when it's too cold. It has to be preferably around 60 degrees for the graphics to lay down good.
Yeah.
If it's any colder than that, you risk the chance of the vinyl ripping or breaking because it comes brittle. If it gets too hot, it starts to melt on you, right? And so
Well, you forgot the most important thing.
What?
If it's too cold, then I'm cold.
That's right. And if she's cold, it doesn't matter how I feel or the graphics feel. We're not going to do
My
it.
fingers won't be working if it's too cold.
Yeah. And so she has a thing, there was something on Facebook where it's like, you prefer 32 degrees over 105 or you prefer the other. And, to tell you the truth, I don't prefer either one.
Right.
I would not take one or the other. I'll say no to both of them and put me in, 65 to 75 degrees all year around. And then, half of you can have your 32 degrees and half of you can have the 105 because I've been in both. And I don't like either one of them, so I don't prefer either one of them. So I can't buy into that thing. Don't categorize me as one or the other. I want to be comfortable, right? And so, but the weather was playing against us, and I say playing against us. It's not the worst case scenario.
Not the worst case.
Not worst. It was a little chilly,
Yeah.
where it's like if it was really had to, we could do it, but we want to make sure that we're as comfortable as possible because if we're comfortable, the install is going to go better.
And we can last longer.
Yes.
Working.
That's right. Because even though it wasn't 105, I still found myself needing electrolytes and where water just wasn't enough. Like I was drinking water and I was like, man, I need more than water. I need some electrolytes. And another thing, we were going through and we weren't eating until the evening, so you don't think about all that stuff.
We weren't breaking for lunch.
Yeah. I mean, and that's I didn't even really think about
Right.
it.
But any business owner would understand that.
Yeah.
Where we're coming from.
Yeah, you eat when you have time to eat.
Yes.
Right. And but it was actually good because you find out how much you depend on food. Because like when we're back here, like by 10:30, 11 o'clock, I'm already like, what are we gonna eat?
Yeah.
And so I'm already thinking about lunch, and it's not because I'm actually hungry necessarily, but I start thinking about it. Now I start thinking about it. Now I start becoming hungry, and then we make a whole event about what we're gonna eat, right? But whenever you're on the install, you don't think about that stuff. It's
No,
like you go into it knowing, hey, we're gonna work, we're gonna plow through and do as many as we can because. This is how you get paid.
Yes.
Right. We don't get paid by the hour. We get paid by how much we can do.
Yeah.
Right?
And how fast we can
do it.
We want to get it done quick.
That's right. The faster you go, the more you get paid. The longer it takes.
Well, not the faster you get paid.
Yeah. Well, so if you want to break it down by hour, right? So the faster you go, the more you make. The longer you take, the less money you make, right? And so we're still getting paid the same amount, but I like to feel like I'm making more money, and so I want to go through it faster.
Okay.
Right?
I understand.
Yeah. And so the site survey, you want to make sure that it's clean. You want to make sure that you have proper lighting. If it's indoors, you want to make sure that it's climate controlled if possible. Well, we didn't have none of that.
No.
We had the sun as the lighting, right? And our AC and our heater was Mother Nature, and so it was windy, so we have to fight with the dust, right? If anybody been to Abilene or live in Abilene, I think they call it the Windy City like it's a nickname, but it's not like Chicago, but you know, I've heard the Windy City of West Texas, or I don't know, something like that, or I might have just made it up. But it gets windy over here, and it's dusty, and man, so there's, you know, that dust can get, you know, behind, so you have to be real careful. Make
or
sure
in
that
your eye.
in your eye, in your mouth, you're tasting it, and so you got to make sure that you're aware of that, because, you know, again, as the installer, it's going to be your fault if the graphics don't look good, right? And so that's actually one of the good things that kind of made me feel good, is that the point of contact, the manager that was up there, he says, man, I don't envy you, but they look good, right? And so you know, the pre-install process, right? Site survey, when I meet with the contact, and then tools checklist. Yes. How important is that?
Oh my gosh,
to an install?
So important. And we've always, even if you plan and you have your checklist and you go by what you've done before, it always seems like we always miss something.
Yeah.
And we can write it down, or have everything already in our tool bag and our little kits and everything. And I'm like, man, where are the tweezers?
Yeah.
And we've been looking for tweezers, and
or where's the red tuck tool or the blue one? I know we had two tuck tools.
Yeah,
where's
so
it
in
at?
the middle of it, we're like, why isn't it in the bag? Or,
yeah.
So I think the checklist is very important. It'll save you time going back and forth, because remember, we are not installing it at our location. We are at a different location. So if we needed something, we have to leave, and that's just time, you know, go pick it up, or if we need more alcohol, we have to go to the store and buy it. And so that's
alcohol for cleaning, not for drinking.
Yes, alcohol. It's rubbing alcohol, but that's what we use to prep our vehicles.
Yeah. Nothing for those of you who like to partake in some adult beverages, but we're just saying we're not getting lit on our projects. Right? You know,
installers would have known exactly what I was talking about.
Right.
They wouldn't have thought alcohol like to get drunk.
That's right. But comment in the section if you're not an installer and you thought about the other alcohol, right? Right. So it's like you got to think about our audience, right?
Yeah.
So yes, rubbing alcohol.
Rubbing alcohol, and
right.
So having a checklist is very important, and we always learn, and we add on to our checklist after every install.
And I love tools, so not just tools with wraps, but I mean, I like different tools, and so it's like I could just go into Harbor Freight, or I can go to Northern Tools, or I can go to any place that has hand tools and power tools, and then not buy a single one of them, but just look at it. It's like, oh, this is nice. Hold them. If I knew how to build, I would have something like this, right? And
he'll be like, hey babe, how do I look? And he's holding it in his hand. And
that's right. Yeah, or mechanics tools. I'm not a mechanic either, but it's like when you have the right tool, it makes the job easier, right? Same thing with install. So this is our business, so we need to have the tools and backup to the tools just in case, because things wear out, right? The squeegees wear out, and the felt buffers that are on there, they wear out, and so if we don't have those in hand, so it's going to affect the install.
Yes.
We're going to get wrinkles. We're gonna maybe cut in. Worst case scenario, cut into the vinyl whenever we do. Our blades. We need to make sure that we have blades and knives.
Plenty of blades.
Right, because you're snapping every time. If you want to get a good, trim, and so all of these things. Your heat gun, your tape. You want to make sure that you have all of the tools that you need. And for me, I like to keep it like right here, and I got a little tool belt, right? And it's like I have all the tools right here that I need. And then what I found is that, it's okay when I'm standing up, but whenever I'm sitting down doing the bottom, it's like this right here starts to flip over, or if I get up, it starts to fall out. And it's just not the best,
design. It's
best design for sitting down, right? It's good for standing up when we're doing, those kind of installs. But sitting down. And so there are tools that we can buy. There's some there's one called it's like a low rider creeper, and then you can sit down. You got your little tools right here, right? And so we got the stools where we can sit down and sit down. But when you're all the way down to the ground, that's a different thing, right? So you need to be able to move, like you're on your butt moving, left and right, and you need your tools close. So that way, your blade's not over there and you've already moved 2 feet, and then now you got to get up and go get it.
Good thing that we're young whippersnappers.
Yeah, if it wasn't for that, man, it's crazy. Sometimes you got to get on your knees. So we were thinking about, man, we should have had some knee pads.
Yeah.
And I've actually seen some tools where it's like you're on your knees and you're rolling on your knees. It's got wheels.
Oh.
And so it's kind of cool. I want to look into that, but so what we did this time is we just got like a lid from one of our containers, and then I took it out of my tool bag, and then I put it on there.
All the tools there.
Everything. So it's like I just grab it real quick and
that was easier, yeah.
Yeah, and it just made it real quick and real efficient. It's all right there, like on a platter.
We have to improvise sometimes.
Improvise.
With whatever we've got on hand.
Yeah, improvising is very important. On every project, but doing it on the fly. It's like when in the middle of the process, saying, okay, this is not working right now.
Yes.
We have to do it this way because this way is going to work for this particular thing.
Yeah.
And that's something, if I had to describe me and you, I'm like made for improvising.
Yes.
Right? And you're made for, but this is how we're supposed to do it.
Yes.
And then so, part of the pre-install process is we should probably talk about, hey, we're going into a situation to where everything is not going to be perfect. Know that going in.
Yeah. Well, that's in every job that we've had this big, and I've already experienced it, but I'm still like, I've already planned it. This is what we need. This is how it's going to go, and then it's still difficult for me to veer off or find another way or come up with another way to help us be more efficient.
Yeah.
And I think in this project, you've helped me. You encourage me. You put me in a situation where, well, what are you gonna do? And he doesn't. I look at him and he looks away, and I'm like, oh, he's asking, like he's putting it on me, like what? So I think this last install job, it helped me. I think I don't know if I got it all the way, babe, so you might still need to encourage me. But I did come
Shortly.
up I did come up with some alternative techniques.
Yeah.
I would tell them, well, it's not working this way, so what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? Just really like point blank. Yeah. And then
but real lovingly, with the spirit of Jesus. It's like I'm trying to be like Jesus when I'm doing it, right?
Babe.
Well, I'm doing it the way that I've learned, right, myself. It's like, so the whole point is that I'm not always going to be around when a difficult decision has to be made, when you have to adapt and improvise to a situation, right?
Yeah.
And so it's, to me, I'm doing you a disservice if you can come to me for the solution to every problem that arises. Because being in business, a two-man business, every single day you're gonna be presented with problems, right? And so any business owners that are out there, husband and wife or partners, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You go into the day and you're like, okay, best case scenario, sunshine and rainbows, we're all gonna be, having fun, and then you get smacked in the face with a problem. Something doesn't come through. These things don't work out the way you're supposed to. Now what are you gonna do, right? And so I've heard somebody, I don't know who it was, but they said, whenever they're hiring people, if they hire somebody who brings them the problem and never brings them a solution, they know that they hired somebody above their ability to solve problems, right? And so it doesn't mean that person has no place in the business, but you might have promoted them a little bit too fast, and you put them in a place that they're not best suited for. And but in our case, it doesn't. We have to be, because there's nobody else,
Yeah.
right? And so I put put you in those situations, and intentionally or deliberately don't give you the solution, so that way you can exercise that muscle, because
Yeah.
solving a problem is a muscle that you need to exercise if you're going to be in business and stay in business,
Yes.
right? You have to be good at solving your own problems, but you also have to be good at solving your customers' problems,
Yeah.
because that's what it's all about. If you can provide a solution to your customers' problems, you'll never have to sell anything. You're just providing solutions to a problem that your customer has.
Right.
And so don't get me preaching, but site survey, and then it's a thing that I guess, to kind of finish this thing up, is that you're 2 years into this full-time business ownership, right? And you're coming from a corporate system, to where all of that stuff was thought of for you, right? All the problems that can pretty much come up, it has already been, figured out. There's someone that you can go to ask. You were actually that person to a lot of people, right? You were the expert, right? And so you were the expert. People came to you. You had the knowledge. You had the experience. You had been there years, right? And so now you're coming into an environment to where you're not the expert,
Right.
and then so you have to look to the expert, right? Which in this case, God bless you, is me, right? And so as the expert, but I'm also her husband, right? And so that's a dynamic that just kind of, we have to figure out how to work that, right? Because it's like, you have to, in work mode, there is the person who has the experience, and then there's the person who doesn't have the experience. It doesn't mean that it's like our roles as husband and wife changes. It's just, this is what I've done, right? And so for this particular situation, listen to the guy who has done it over and over and over. I know that you want to do it, and we've had those conversations,
Yeah.
right? It's like, look, whenever you become an expert at it, then you do it however you want to, because I don't really care if you follow the right technique. That's not my primary concern. It's getting the job done. And so if you want to do it from left to right, do it left to right. But if you can't do it from left to, if you can't do it from right to left, like I'm telling you, and you can't do it back and forth, then just do it the way that I tell you, until you can do it back and forth. And then you could say, you know what, left to right doesn't work for me. I'm going to go right to left. Let me show you. And then in this particular one, you actually showed some examples of solutions that you came up with that made things easier as we were going through.
I had to. I was on my own.
Hey guys, we thank you for tuning in. We want you to stay tuned. We hope that the information that we've covered is informative, and you're actually enjoying the content. But we want you to stay tuned. In our next segment, we're going to talk about our install process.